Hey, how's it going, folks? This is Hellbent, and today I'm going to release the first of what is probably going to be many custom GUI control sets. So tonight I'm going to be releasing a button class to allow you to create these buttons. Let me see if I can find the little demo that I have of them. I don't know, is it this one? I don't think it's this one. No, it's not that one. That's not it. Maybe this one. So these little resizable multicolored buttons that you can create, they have three states: default, mouse over, and press. So I'm going to be releasing a tool that allows you to create these really quickly. So this is the second video I released tonight. Earlier I had released one on a tool that allows you to create a custom window to add a custom background, a bitmap to a GUI, create that GUI from scratch, and just like if I was seriously going at it, like under a minute easily, just bam, it's done. I have it up and running, and I have a window. So if you watched that video already, I've changed the window to a different bitmap, which is probably better for this demo. So I just created a little very cheesy background that I'm going to put some buttons on. So let me go into the class. So the tool itself has the class built into it, and all you have to do is put in the code where it's appropriate. So first off, every time you create a new button, it has different parameters to it, or different arguments that need to be passed to it. So it has an X position, a Y position, a width, a height. It has a color for the button, so that's what you see: the green here, the blue here, the yellow here, the red here, the white here, right? It has a background, so the button itself, it's a rounded button, but underneath it there's a couple of pixels around all sides of the border that have a flat color. So you need to make sure that if you're putting this onto a GUI, that you're not putting it onto something that has a gradient. You can adjust the code to put in to use gradient with it, but that would take some effort on your behalf. So best bet is just put it onto the button onto a flat color background. It can be any color you want, just make sure it doesn't have a gradient. Next is what kind of font do you want to use for the text on the button, the size of the font on the button, the color of each button has two layers of text. One is like a shadow that sits behind it. So the font color is the main color on top, and then the font background color is the color behind it. So on this one, black is on top and then white is behind it. On this one, white is on top and black is behind it. So it just gives a little bit of a shadow. Next one is what is the GUI you're going to be attaching it to. So if your GUI, like I always do, it's just GUI 1 and then GUI 2, GUI 3. So which GUI am I attaching the button to? And then which label am I going to be attaching to it? And then what text do I want on that button? So that's the arguments that it's expecting. You don't even have to worry about this. You can do all of this stuff once you have the code in your script, but this makes it easy if you want to. One exception would be the X and the Y. You're probably going to have to play around with that once you have it in your script. So let's do that. So like I said, I have a window. I have a window here. It's already been created for me, and I'm going to add some buttons to that. There's a few steps I need to take. The first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to clip the class for this button. So I'm going to come down here to the clip button class, and now that's in my clipboard. You probably can't hear it, but there's actually a beep that lets me know. So I get a little beep telling me, alright, it's in my clipboard. I'm just going to come in here and paste in the class. You can read over what the class does. It just takes some bitmaps that I've created and draws them onto the screen, gives it some variables, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Feel free to look through the code. Okay, so I have the class in now. The next thing I need is, do I want to have the button so that way I can get this little lightning effect when I hover over them? Yes, I do. So I'm going to clip the hover function, and I'm going to paste that into my script. And there's what deals with the hover. Next is the setup. So the buttons, they have to have a specific name, and I need to activate the hover function. So I'm going to clip the setup, and up at the top of my script before I add any buttons. So it doesn't have to be right up at the top of my script, but it does have to be it has to be after GDIP has been started, and it has to be before I start adding in my buttons. So if I want, I can put it right here, but I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to put it right there. So all it does is it creates a global array called HB button. All the buttons have to start with that name, but don't worry, they name themselves. And I'm going to set a timer. So usually I don't put my timers up there. Usually I put it right before the return, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this timer, and this deals with the hover function. I'm going to come down here right before the return and paste that there. Okay, so that's the setup done. The last thing that we need is the buttons themselves and the click function. So the click function, we need to add that to the labels that the buttons are attached to. So since we don't have any buttons yet, they don't have any labels attached to them yet, so we don't have the click function yet. So I'm going to leave all these things default for now, and I'm going to clip a new button. I'm going to come into my script, give myself a little bit of white space, and paste in my first button. Now that I have that, what I'm going to do is immediately I'm going to give it a label. So I'm going to come to the end here, and I'm going to add a label. I'm going to call it button test. Okay, I have a label there. Now I need to go create the subroutine. So it's somewhere down here. I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to make it a function. I could just do a normal label. Actually, I'll just do a label. Okay, so now I have it attached to a label. Inside of here, I need to add the click function. So I'm going to come in here and clip the click function and paste that in there. As a last minute thing I added was this line right here. So before, if I have an edit control like this, even if I press the buttons, that edit would still keep flashing. So I added in this line so that way it stops that from happening, because it gets kind of annoying for that to be like that all the time. So now when you click on a button, it doesn't actually really do anything. All it does is it steals the focus. So right now this control has the focus. If I click on the button, it'll steal the focus, and now that doesn't have focus anymore. Just makes it a little bit less annoying. Next thing is, this is what actually calls up the method for drawing the pressed state. So when I click on the button, it does this. So what it says is that it's going to draw the press state, but then what it says is if my cursor is over the button still when I release my mouse, go ahead and execute the code down here. I'll put a tray tip. Is that 1, 2? Yeah, okay. So I'll run this. Oh, yeah. So if my button's over here, when I release it, go ahead and execute that code. But if I press and move my cursor away and then release, my mouse isn't over the button anymore, so don't execute the code. Instead, just return like as if nothing happened. So it has that. So if I click, if I'm over it when I release, executes the code. If I click, move, release, no code gets executed. Okay, that's it. I just need to go in now and add my button. So X, Y, width, height, blah, blah, blah. So it's got X position, Y position, width, a height. For these buttons, they have a, you can go maximum as whatever you want, but they have a minimum of 38 pixels. So the height has to be at least 38 pixels and the width has to be at least 38 pixels. In other words, it starts deforming, and I'll show you what it looks like. It actually looks kind of cool, so maybe you want to make a couple of buttons like that. But anyways, next is the buttons color, which is the color you see. The second color is the background, so I'm going to be putting it onto a GUI that has a particular color. So I need to change this to be that color. The text I want to have on my button, the font that I want to use, the size of the font I want to use, the top layer for the text, the top layer, the bottom layer for the text, the window I'm attaching it to, and the label I'm attaching it to. So it filled out all that for me. So I should, knock on wood, I might have to adjust this, but knock on wood, everything's ready to go. That's just a sight thing. So there we go. So there's my button, and I can already tell that the background color is not the right color, but let's deal with the positioning first. So I'm going to do, let's say X20 and Y50. And there we go. So now I can see that layer that I was talking about that's underneath that wraps around the border of the buttons. I need to change that to blend in with my background. So I can either go down and find the color, or I can just pull out my color picker tool and get that color. So get color, get that, and now in my clipboard I have that color, and I'll paste it in there. And there we go. Now it blends in. And that's it. It's ready to go. So if I click on this, I get the click state. So I can hover. I don't know if you can tell the difference when I hover over it. It gets a little bit lighter. If I click on it, it does the click state. If I move my cursor, nothing happens. If I click on it and keep my cursor here, it's going to give me a tray tip. And there we go. That's it. That's how easy it is to add a button. Next is, okay, maybe I want to do a different color. Some colors don't look very nice with this one. Where's my color picker? There it is. What am I doing? So I'll pick, let's go for some random colors. So I'm going to go with this pink color. So I'll get color. Let's see what that button looks like with that color. And there we go, new color. How about get color? How about that color? Okay, etc., etc. Okay, so the way I set this up is I can duplicate now. I don't need this tool anymore. I can put it away. Maybe the only thing I might want to get from it is the click function over and over again, so that way I don't have to track down the code that I have here over and over again. I can just click it and put it into my new label that I'm using. But other than that, I'm done with this tool. I just need to add in the class, I need to add in the click function, the hover function, the button itself, and now I can just start duplicating. So if I want another button, I can start using these coordinates that I have. Just be aware that if in your script, if you're using above this line, if you're using a variable called X or Y, it's going to get overwritten by this. You shouldn't use X, Y, whatever for more than temporary variables anyways. But anyways, so now what I can do is with this one, if I want this second button to sit beside the first button, all I have to do is I can say, instead of x equaling 20, I can say x plus equals the width of the, because right now this variable w has a value of 150, so I'm going to add the width, and let's say I'm going to give it a little bit of padding between it of 10 pixels. So it's going to be the new x position is the old x position plus the width of the last button plus 10 pixels. The y position is going to be the same. The width is going to be the same. The height's going to be the same. I'm going to give it a new color. Let's go with that. Maybe I want to put some new text on the button. Maybe I want to change the font color, the top color. I'll make the top color, let's say, what color is this button? This is gray. So I'll make it red. Yeah, let's go red. Automatically, I've added into the class itself so that it automatically adds the 0x and then the alpha. So just add the 6-digit hexadecimal color for the colors that you add. So the first two characters are the red, next two are the green, and the last two are the blue. And I'll do this. What color is this button? That. I'll do. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I'll attach it just to the same label. And now I should have a button as long. I think it might. Yeah, it should fit. There we go. So now I have a new button. Alright, so like I said, it's got a minimum height of about 38 pixels and a minimum width of 38 pixels. So let's see what happens if I drop this down to, let's say, 30 pixels, and you'll see what happens with these buttons if you go below it. So you see this? This is what happens if you go below. The button still works. I don't know, you might even think that looks cool, but so if I go to, let's say, 37 is when it, no, I can see a little bit but not clearly, so let's go 35. There. So I don't know, maybe you think that looks cool. I don't, but whatever. 30, it needs to be at least 38 I'd say 40 on the safe side to make it look really nice. 40 pixels, but you can go, 120 pixels tall. Make all kinds of different sizes. Yeah, but that is it for this. If you have any questions about it, let me know. I'm going to be releasing more button classes. So for example, the ones that I used in this project, they're all the same. It's all the same class. I've just rewritten it a couple of times in different ways. But it's this particular button here. And let me see. There we go. So these are all the same. It's all the same button, but I've made alterations to them. I just I don't have the code yet for you to be able to do it easily. I have to go right now. I've been going in and editing them by hand, but soon I'll have I'll have a class ready that you can just type into an interface like this, and bam, Bob's your uncle. Next will be also some like check boxes and radio buttons, and maybe some simple drop down lists and things like that. But anyways, that's it for this class. The link to this will be in the description. I'll also link to the last video I just did about, I don't know, it's probably been about an hour now. I'll leave a link to that, which is to get basically this window, or any window that you create, up and running quickly. And then, you can add in your buttons or whatever. Anyways, that's it for this one. Peace, I'm out.